Upon Adolf Hitler's ascension to the chancellorship on January 30th, 1933, and his self-proclamation as Führer of the Third Reich, he commanded Heinrich Himmler, the Reich Führer of the SS, to establish a sort of Praetorian Guard that would function as his personal escort and security detail. Entrusted with this responsibility was Oberfuhrer Sepp Dietrich, who chose 120 volunteers from the Sturmabteilung Adolf Hitler. These men received specialized military instruction before being organized into the SS Stabswache. Dietrich had previously belonged to a right-wing extremist organization known as Stahlhelm. Following his tenure in the SA and his duties in Munich, Dietrich departed from the SA and became a member of the National Socialist Party in 1923, which faced prohibition in Germany after the unsuccessful bid to capture control of the Bavarian administration, known as the Putsch. For the subsequent 3 years, Dietrich remained essentially without employment, accepting sporadic temporary work in Munich. In 1928, as the National Socialist Party reorganized and regained influence in Germany, Dietrich returned and received assignment to the expanding SS. He entered the SS on August 1, 1928, and obtained appointment as SS Führer at the party's national headquarters in Munich. The Stabswache positioned its personnel at the Alexander Barracks on Friedrichstrasse Street in Berlin, in close proximity to the Reich Chancellery. From May 1933 forward, it enlarged its staff by adding 3 additional companies, organized into the SS Kommando Zossen. These formations, which had received prior training from military commissioners and officers of the Weimar Republic Army, were assigned the task of preventing anti-terrorist operations and breaking up potential demonstrations by left-wing revolutionary factions. Due to numerous enrollment applications in June 1933, 3 additional companies were recruited and incorporated into the SS Kommando Zutog, which later merged with the SS Kommando Zossen in September. During a commemoration of the National Socialist German Workers' Party Congress that reached its climax in the establishment of the Adolf Hitler Standarte, this new Guard unit was introduced to the public on November 9, 1933, in a ceremony before the Feldherrenhalle Temple in Munich, where they swore loyalty to the Führer. I pledge to you, Adolf Hitler, Führer and Chancellor of the Reich, loyalty and courage. I vow obedience to you and to the superiors appointed by you. May God assist me. This division received its definitive name as the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler by the end of 1933. The Leibstandarte was stationed at the Berlin Lichterfelde Barracks, with personnel numbering 986 German and Austrian soldiers, which expanded in 1935 to reach a total of 2,551 troops. Among their responsibilities was protecting the Reich Chancellery through mobile or stationary patrols, operating in 24-hour rotations, as well as accompanying the Führer to rallies and public gatherings. Simultaneously, they performed various secondary duties such as guarding the Gestapo headquarters, and some members were selected as Hitler's aides in capacities such as servants, drivers, or waiters. While the Leibstandarte was being formed in Berlin, other comparable units were concurrently multiplying throughout Germany, independent of the General SS, called the Verfügungstruppe. These shock forces consisted of political paramilitary troops who underwent stringent training, focused exclusively on sports and physical fitness. In June 1934, during the notorious Night of the Long Knives, the Leibstandarte executed the mission of eliminating undesirable members such as Ernst Röhm, who had fallen from Hitler's favor due to his open antagonism toward him, creating tensions with the Reich Führer. Sepp Dietrich and Theodor Eicke oversaw the execution of Röhm. Other SA members and SS subversives were also eliminated. As compensation for the services provided on that occasion, Hitler promoted Sepp Dietrich to SS Obergruppenführer, and the division Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler under his command received preferential treatment, ascending to become the elite division of the SS. By 1935, the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler contained approximately 2,660 members. Combat instruction became exceptionally rigorous, and the selection procedure even more stringent. This fundamentally distinguished it from the Wehrmacht. Additionally, Himmler sought to separate and grant autonomy to the SS from the Wehrmacht, which did not regard the formation of parallel combat forces favorably. On the other hand, Josef Dietrich, in addition to Hitler, managed to secure the necessary independence from the SS organization, bypassing Himmler himself. The Leibstandarte received funding directly from state resources rather than party funds, unlike the remainder of the SS. It was supplied with the finest instructors, firearms, artillery, and training. Dietrich, in his endeavor to make this special unit autonomous, generated rivalries with other SS divisions. However, the conflicts did not separate the Leibstandarte from the rest of the organization. What prevented complete independence was logistical support. The SS depended logistically on the Wehrmacht. To avoid confrontations with the Wehrmacht, Hitler placed them under the administration of the same army as support divisions. However, he also desired complete autonomy for his elite troops. For training and indoctrination purposes, a war academy was established in Bad Tölz through the initiatives of Paul Hauser. The official headquarters of the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler was installed in Lichterfelde near Berlin, despite Dietrich's opposition. Hauser acted as a liaison between the SS and the Wehrmacht, partly alleviating the obstacles. In the following years, Hauser served as inspector of schools in the newly created Waffen SS. He soon became known to his students and comrades in arms as a brilliant leader. Friendly, fair, well-disposed to all, but also energetic, earning the title Papa Hauser, a name he would retain until his death. In the selection of individuals for the Leibstandarte, certain criteria had to be fulfilled. These requirements, established by Himmler, included possessing an Aryan certificate duly signed by Himmler himself, minimum height of 1.78 meters. If 2 centimeters shorter, they could access the Totenkopfverbände, an SS subunit. Superior physical and intellectual capabilities, and physical appearance in accordance with the standards of Walter de Rey. In general, the Leibstandarte SS soldier was considered superior to the Wehrmacht soldier in both physical aptitude and military capability. Every recruit remained in novice status until they passed ideological indoctrination, infantry, and armored courses, all conducted in SS schools. Exercises often involved live ammunition, and a soldier had to be capable of placing a magnetic mine on a moving tank. Many of the instructional tactics were devised by Reinhard Heydrich. The instruction overall was as rigorous as that of the renowned British commandos. Fundamentally, this policy to create super soldiers was supported by the initial mockery from the SA under Röhm toward the SS, branding them as worthless soldiers of the asphalt. In Bad Tölz, the academy featured a football field, boxing halls, comprehensive gymnasiums, swimming pools. Nearly all instructors were Olympic champions in their respective fields. The course was supplemented with mountain training, assaults on hostile beaches, neutralization of booby traps, and conducting raids as commandos in enemy territory. Hauser's idea was to create a super soldier athlete capable of rapid assaults on enemy positions, handling dangerous situations, assuming leadership in combat, and proposing initiatives to superiors. On the ideological front, aspirants were deeply indoctrinated in their hatred toward Jews and communism. This was crucial as they would carry out repressive tasks against populations declared enemies of the Reich. The aspirant or novice could freely resign if they couldn't endure the training. After taking the oath, the bond was unbreakable until death. In fact, during training, psychological pressure was applied to encourage novices to quit the SS. Thus, those who couldn't withstand the psychological pressure or physical training were filtered out. The end product was proven loyal super soldiers. This technique is still used in the training of commandos and special forces in the United States. As the war approached, Heinrich Himmler requested the formation of several combat units from the SS Standarten, subject to SS disciplinary frameworks and outside the jurisdiction of the Wehrmacht, so that the forces of the Waffen SS were solely accountable to Hitler and tacitly directed by Himmler, ensuring they were equipped with the best quality training, supplies, and ammunition, superior even to those of the Wehrmacht. Recruitment would also be rigorous and selective, demanding outstanding physical and mental skills as well as impeccable Aryan origin from aspirants. At the beginning, the Waffen SS units were equipped with second-hand weapons, and the material and equipment of many units originated from Czechoslovakia and Austria. This policy continued throughout the war, except for a select group of divisions formed with personnel of German origin, which were provided with the best equipment. Most of the high-quality material and equipment were also allocated to equip other elite divisions of the Wehrmacht, such as the Panzer Grenadier Division Großdeutschland, the 130th Panzer Lehr Division, and the Hermann Göring Division of the Luftwaffe. The three resulting formations, Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, SS Verfügungstruppe, and SS Totenkopfverbände, were adequately armed and took part in the invasion of Poland. The performance of the Waffen SS was mediocre during these campaigns. The initial poor showing of the Waffen SS units was primarily attributable to Himmler's emphasis on political indoctrination and blind adherence to National Socialism, rather than purely military instruction before the war. This was largely due to the scarcity of experienced instructors who preferred to remain with the regular army, which was considered more technical than ideologically charged combat units like the Waffen SS. The experience acquired in the campaigns in Poland, France, and the Balkans, and the unique training methods soon transformed the Waffen SS into genuine elite units. Conceived as a Nordic army according to its theorists, the Reich Führer of the SS Heinrich Himmler decided to implement his concept between late 1940 and early 1941. Thus, the project of the Nordic Legions was born, composed of foreign volunteers of Nordic or Scandinavian descent from occupied Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, and the Flemish region of Belgium, as well as from neutral Switzerland and Sweden, or the co-belligerent Finland. Among the most famous formations were the Norwegian Legion Norwegian, composed of Norwegian volunteers, the Danish Corps Freikorps Danmark by Danes, the Dutch Legion Nederland by Dutch, the Flemish Legion Flandern by Flemish Belgians, and the 3rd Swedish SS Grenadier Company by Swedes, which eventually merged into the 11th SS Grenadier Division, Nordland. Simultaneously, new mixed formations of Germans with Nordics and Scandinavians were created, such as the 5th SS Panzer Division Viking, under the command of General Felix Steiner, or the 6th SS Mountain Division Nord, which included some Finnish skiers. However, the organization of exclusively German forces also continued, such as the expansion of the SS Division Verfügungstruppe into the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich, led by General Paul Hauser. If the Second World War had concluded between 1940 and 1941, as anticipated by the highest echelons of the Third Reich, the Waffen SS would have been a purely Aryan and Nordic army, as initially envisioned by its proponents. However, factors such as the prolonged duration of the conflict, its extension beyond Northern Europe to other theaters, and above all, maintaining alliances with vastly different countries that racially bore no resemblance to Germany, undermined the National Socialist propaganda of justifying the war as a defense of German blood purity. In fact, this unexpected geopolitical turn of diplomatic and strategic situations forced the Third Reich to adapt its principles within a gradually globalizing world, and consequently led the Waffen SS to outwardly set aside National Socialist doctrine and begin to include the much more appealing fascist doctrine. As a result, the Waffen SS ceased to be an army composed of Nordic legions and became an army of foreign legions regardless of race, ethnicity, nationality, or religion. When the Axis initiated the invasion of the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa on June 22, 1941, the Waffen SS for the first time would have significant participation with numerous troops. According to their assigned zones, the deployment was as follows. The Northern Army Group included the 3rd Division Totenkopf and the 4th Division Polizei. The Central Army Group had the 2nd Division Das Reich. The Southern Army Group had the Panzer Divisions Leibstandarte and Viking, and the Finnish Army Group had the 6th Mountain Division Nord. Operationally, the performance of the Waffen SS in the Soviet Union campaign was highly positive in all aspects. The 2nd Panzer Division Das Reich contributed to the destruction of the Minsk pocket and the subsequent capture of the Belarusian capital, while the 3rd Panzer Division Totenkopf was crucial in the occupation of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, just as the 4th Division Polizei played a significant role in besieging Leningrad. However, the greatest success came in Ukraine with the 1st and 5th SS Panzer Divisions, Leibstandarte, and Viking, after capturing 500,000 Soviet soldiers in the Kiev pocket, which constituted the largest victory in military history to date. With the conflict becoming global after Japan's attack on the United States at Pearl Harbor at the end of 1941, the Waffen SS greatly expanded its forces to 200,000 men in anticipation of what was expected to be a resource-consuming struggle. This led to the creation of new German and Volksdeutsche formations from the Carpathians, such as the 8th SS Cavalry Division Florian Geyer, which fought in the Battle of Rzhev, or the 9th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen, which acted as a garrison force on the coast of France. On several occasions, the Waffen SS were criticized by the regular army due to their indifference to combat casualties. However, the Waffen SS divisions proved to be exceptional and disciplined units, especially during Operation Barbarossa, demonstrating great efficiency in combat. The rigorous training and excellent quality of weapons and ammunition made the Waffen SS units highly prestigious in military terms, coupled with absolute and fanatical obedience to Hitler. The combination of these traits made the Waffen SS the Führer's preferred military units. The Waffen SS truly demonstrated their valor during the Third Battle of Kharkov, where the 2nd SS Panzer Corps, under the command of Brigade Führer Paul Hauser, recaptured the city and halted the Soviet offensive, saving the forces of Erich von Manstein's army group. Following the Axis defeat in the Battle of Stalingrad in February 1943, which shifted the course of World War II in favor of the Allies, the Waffen SS grouped the Leibstandarte, Das Reich, Totenkopf, and Viking divisions into the SS Panzer Corps, equipping them with new Panther and Tiger tank models. This consolidation of forces led the Waffen SS to reconquer the city of Kharkov, dealing a significant blow to the Red Army, and subsequently to Operation Citadel, which continued with the Battle of Kursk, where the SS Panzer Corps destroyed over 300 Soviet tanks in a single day. At the Battle of Prokhorovka, these SS Panzer Corps were practically the best soldiers and commanders of the entire German army. At the forefront was the Leibstandarte, led by Sturmbannführer Teddy Wish. One of the finest soldiers in this division was Werner Wolf. Wolf was awarded the Knight's Cross on August 7, 1943, while serving as an aide to Joachim Peiper in the 2nd SS Panzer Grenadier Battalion. Peiper recommended Wolf for his actions after taking command of the 13th Battalion, following the injuries suffered by his commander during the Battle of Kursk in early July. Wolf halted the attack of a Russian tank, destroyed a lone tank, and refused to surrender on the battlefield in the face of the Russian assault. In November 1943, Wolf was shot in the thigh and had to have his leg amputated. However, when the medical order came to operate on him, Wolf showed his pistol and warned the doctor that he was not willing to lose a leg, even firing a shot into the ground as a warning. Wolf then made a full recovery. At that time, Joachim Peiper held the rank of Obersturmbannführer. March 12, 1943, was one of the key days for Peiper. In the midst of the Third Battle of Kharkov and disobeying orders from higher command, Peiper conducted one of his characteristic attacks, bypassing several towns and, after a flanking march to the east of Kharkov, seized the northern river crossings at the Donets River, preventing Soviet reinforcements from reaching Kiev. This blow would be the key to Peiper's entry into Kharkov, later earning him the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. Another distinguished soldier of the Leibstandarte at Kursk was Panzer Ace Michael Wittmann. Wittmann was part of the southern wing that moved out from Belgorod and attacked Teterevino. His first victim was an anti-tank gun that he obliterated, followed by a KV-1 flamethrower tank engulfed in a fireball, and finally a second piece he crushed with his tank's tracks before popping out of the hatch to gun down several infantrymen with his MP-40 submachine gun. In just the first day of Kursk, he eliminated 8 tanks and 7 guns, while during the second day on July 6th, he neutralized an artillery battery after emerging from a forest near Lutsk and destroyed a T-34 tank. Similar successes were repeated on July 7th near Teterevino, with 7 more tanks pulverized and 19 guns. However, his greatest test came during the Battle of Prokhorovka, when a Soviet armored corps charged his unit, trying to close the distance to penetrate the Tiger tank's armor more easily. Wittmann responded by blowing up one T-34 after another in the midst of a true hunt. By the end of the Battle of Kursk in mid-July, the daring Bavarian tanker had racked up 30 destroyed tanks and 36 artillery pieces. In the 2nd Panzer Division, Das Reich, Sturmbannführer Christian Teixen stood out. He was one of the most respected combat commanders of Das Reich and was legendary for his bravery in battle. The Reich Division had a fearsome combat reputation, participating in nearly all major engagements of World War II. It performed exceptionally well under some of the most capable and energetic commanders of the Waffen SS. The tanks of the Panzer Grenadier Division Das Reich played a key role in the Kharkov campaign in early 1943. The division eliminated a total of 292 Soviet tanks and self-propelled vehicles in the Kharkov-Belgorod campaign, while losing 77 tanks and assault guns. Sturmbannführer Christian Teixen's command tank was a Panzer IV. He was an inspirational leader who preferred to command his units from the front line amidst the action, adapting powerful and fierce tactics quickly. Christian Teichson was awarded the Knight's Cross on March 31, 1943, for his outstanding leadership of the 2nd Battalion of Das Reich during the intense battles of Kharkov. He became the commander of the 2nd Regiment of Das Reich in November 1943. Most of the Flemish volunteers in the Das Reich Division were concentrated in this regiment. In his division was also the brutal Oberführer von Ribbentrop. During this time, Obersturmbannführer von Ribbentrop distinguished himself particularly in the area north of Belgorod on July 8, 1943. On this day, Obersturmbannführer von Ribbentrop commanded the armored group of the division, and his mission was to separate from the bulk of his division, oriented toward the east and attack toward the Seversky Donets River, along with the armored group of the Panzer Grenadier Leibstandarte. The objective of this movement was to facilitate the advance of the units in the neighboring corps. Although the armored group could not gather all its forces in time due to the intense defensive combats that were occurring that same day, Obersturmbannführer von Ribbentrop decided to proceed anyway with the troops available at hand, leaving enough troops for the defensive battle while carrying out his original mission of striking the overwhelming enemy armored forces that had just arrived in front of the neighboring corps. This independent decision led to total success. Despite the persistent threat on the flanks, after hard fighting, a total of 53 enemy tanks were destroyed and 10 kilometers of terrain were taken. The outstanding personal actions of the regimental commander ensured the success of this extremely difficult operation. A notable relief was subsequently felt on the right wing of the neighboring left corps. A possible expansion of this success in a joint operation with the armored group of the Leibstandarte, which was advancing from south to north 10 kilometers further to the west, was cancelled as the group was called back to the main area of the division to assist in its precarious defensive battle. Unfortunately, the landing of Anglo-American troops in Sicily during Operation Husky necessitated the intervention of the Waffen SS in Italy. This included actions such as the Leibstandarte disarming units of the Italian army that had just switched sides to the Allies, or the newly formed 16th SS Panzer Grenadier Division Reichsführer SS, which covered the retreat of German troops from Sardinia, Corsica, and southern Italy in the fall of 1943. Simultaneously in the Soviet Union, the SS Panzer Corps and the new 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitler Jugend, composed of teenagers from the Hitler Youth, continued to fight. They first engaged in combat at the Kuban River bridgehead, then in the Donets Basin, and later on the banks of the Dnieper River, inflicting significant losses on the Russians, as seen in the Battle of Zhytomyr. By early 1944, the situation was extremely delicate for the Axis, and thus the Waffen SS had to maximize their performance. One of the prime examples was the Battle of the Korsun-Cherkasy Pocket, where the Das Reich and Viking divisions were rescued from the encirclement by the Red Army, thanks ultimately to the intervention of the Belgian SS Panzer Grenadier Division under the command of General Léon de Grelle. De Grelle, who survived over 50 close combat engagements, was decorated with the Iron Cross for his actions. Simultaneously in the Battle of Narva in the Baltic states, SS units such as Nordland, the Latvian SS Grenadier Divisions, and the Estonian Grenadier Division heroically resisted Soviet assaults, inflicting over 500,000 casualties on the enemy at the cost of very few of their own. This prevented the collapse of Army Group North and facilitated the withdrawal to the Courland Peninsula along the Baltic Sea. Only in the Arctic, specifically in Lapland, did the 6th SS Mountain Division Nord and the SS Ski Battalion Norwegian encounter some difficulties in maintaining the front line in Finland. Meanwhile, in Italy, the 16th SS Panzer Grenadier Division, Reichsführer SS, and the 29th Italian SS Grenadier Division repelled Anglo-American forces in the Battle of Anzio. Following the shortage of men after the defeat at Stalingrad, General Gottlob Berger, a prominent figure in the Waffen SS who had previously been involved in recruiting foreigners, proposed as an urgent measure the incorporation of members of the Hitler Youth born in 1926, who at that time would be between 16 and 17 years old. Adolf Hitler was captivated by the proposal, and on February 10, 1943, he approved the conscription of 30,000 underage individuals. Coincidentally, in early June 1944, the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitler Jugend was transferred to the Belgian city of Hasselt instead of being sent to the Eastern Front as planned. Shortly afterward, it crossed the border into France to station its various units, consisting of 20,540 personnel, 229 tanks, 658 armored vehicles, and 2,000 vehicles along the northern towns of Bayeux, Carentan, Cherbourg, and Caen. This undoubtedly facilitated matters when the Normandy landings occurred on June 6th, because at 14:30 on D-Day, the entire 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend was mobilized toward Caen, a city close to the Juno and Sword beaches where British and Canadian forces had landed. The journey of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend to the beaches of Normandy was difficult due to Allied aviation, which caused some casualties among vehicles, although the 12th Anti-Aircraft Artillery Battalion also retaliated by shooting down some aircraft. Traffic jams on the roads didn't help either, so the vanguards of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend did not reach Normandy until nightfall. After establishing themselves in the town of Christaux, 10 kilometers from Caen, at 1000 hours on June 7th, the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend deployed between Christaux and Caen with 50 Panzer IV and Panther tanks, establishing its headquarters at Ardennes Abbey. Unexpectedly, these forces launched a surprise attack on the Canadian 27th Armored Regiment, expelling them from their positions in the area after reconquering the German soldiers at Authy, Francville, and Puteaux-en-Bessin, before being halted near Buren by enemy anti-tank guns. During this assault, the Canadians lost 28 tanks while the Germans lost only 5 Panzer IVs. One of the greatest feats of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend during the Battle of Caen was the heroic action of 24-year-old volunteer Émile Dur on June 26, 1944, in the town of Saint-Monvieux-Noret. It all happened when a Churchill Crocodile flamethrower tank threatened his position, prompting Dur instinctively to grab a Panzerfaust and fire a projectile that bounced off its structure just before a bullet struck him in the chest. Enduring the pain, he returned to his lines, grabbed another Panzerfaust, and fired at the tank, immobilizing it by destroying its tracks. Although a burst of machine gun fire wounded him for the second time, nearly bleeding out, Dur grabbed a magnetic mine, placed the charge on the tank, and left. Unfortunately, the device detached at the last moment and fell to the ground. However, Dur did not falter. He returned to the tank, placed the mine again on the armored vehicle, and left, being wounded in the legs for the third time. Fortunately, this time the charge exploded, destroying the Churchill Crocodile tank. Later that day, Émile Dur would bleed to death from his wounds, earning him posthumously the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. As the Red Army unleashed the massive Operation Bagration against Belarus in June 1944, the Waffen SS suffered significant losses in personnel during the retreat toward Poland. On the Western Front, things were not any better for the Waffen SS. After the Allied landing in Provence during Operation Dragoon, they withdrew to Alsace and Lorraine, suffering heavy casualties. Fortunately, things changed in the autumn of 1944 during Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. The SS Panzer Divisions Hohenstaufen, Frundsberg, and Nordland ambushed and completely annihilated British, American, and Polish airborne troops at the drop zones of Arnhem, Nijmegen, and Eindhoven. However, the most spectacular action took place during the Battle of the Bulge between late 1944 and early 1945, when the main SS Panzer divisions broke through the forests of Belgium and Luxembourg, temporarily breaching the enemy's front lines. With the new King Tiger tanks leading the way, they took over 13,000 American prisoners and destroyed hundreds of enemy tanks while advancing 100 kilometers toward Liège. As did the Kampfgruppe SS Piper, led by Commander Joachim Piper, who would be decorated for his incredible feat. Surprisingly, after the failure in Hungary, Hitler harshly censured the Waffen SS, threatening to dissolve them and merge them into other units, while also ordering the withdrawal of honorary titles. This order displeased and was not obeyed by the commander of the 6th SS Panzer Army, Obergruppenführer Josef Sepp Dietrich, who criticized Hitler's insistence on sending the already diminished Waffen SS into almost suicidal operations. During the final months of the war, Hitler continued to criticize the Waffen SS, now composed of numerous improvised recruits after losing most of its best troops. The atrocities committed by the Waffen SS on the Eastern Front fueled a fierce spirit of revenge among Soviet forces, leading the SS division leaders to order their men to flee westward as soon as possible. In May 1945, the survivors who managed to escape surrendered almost entirely to American forces. As the Waffen SS were frontline combat units, several of their divisions were considered elite. These divisions were characterized by extremely high morale and excellent combat ability, as well as being politicized in their mission of a crusade against Bolshevism and the defense of Europe. They were also frequently provided with the best available equipment. Toward the end of the war, the SS had their own scientific laboratories and military technology development factories, controlling the production of secret weapons. The fate of Waffen SS fighters at the end of the Second World War in 1945 was tragic. All those volunteers who were captured by the Red Army, such as White Russians, Latvians, Hungarians, Romanians, Finns, and others, were either immediately killed or deported to the Siberian gulags. Meanwhile, citizens with Soviet nationality who were captured by the Allies, such as Cossacks, Georgians, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, North Caucasians, Turkestanis, or Tatars, were forcibly extradited to the Soviet Union in the so-called Operation Keelhaul, which had been previously agreed upon at the Yalta Conference. As a result, they suffered the same fate. Similar fates awaited volunteers in the Balkans, including Croats, Bosnians, Albanians, and Serbs, who were brutally executed by the Yugoslavs in the Bleiburg massacre. Simultaneously, in Western Europe, a psychosis emerged among the new authorities and partisan groups who tortured and murdered hundreds of French, Italian, and Belgian volunteers, as well as a smaller number of Dutch, Norwegian, Danish, Luxembourgish, and British individuals. Estonians who surrendered to the Czech resistance in Prague were burned alive in human pyres, while Arabs and Africans who surrendered to French colonial troops were shot on the spot. And Indians captured by the British were inhumanely crammed into cargo ship cages and transported to India to be imprisoned in the Red Fort of Delhi. Regarding the volunteers who were not killed or lynched, they endured long prison sentences in jails and concentration camps, forced labor, or the deprivation of civil rights. Only Germans, Ukrainians, Belarusians, and Swedes were spared from prosecution. Germans were recognized as a regular army, Ukrainians were protected by Vatican interventions, Belarusians were granted amnesty in exchange for service in the French Foreign Legion, and Swedes were welcomed back to their homeland as heroes due to Sweden's neutral stance. Until the late 20th century, the Waffen SS remained relatively overlooked in historiography, largely due to the recentness of World War II and the abundance of yet-to-be-documented information. However, as the end of the Cold War approached in 1991 and subsequently entered the 21st century, the Waffen SS assumed fundamental importance in the study of the last global conflict. This was because they constituted the first multinational army, bringing together volunteers from all 5 continents, from countries on both sides of the conflict, from colonies, neutral nations, and more under a common institution. This unique phenomenon not only became a reality, which was already challenging in itself, but also gained popularity because the multicultural quality of its fighters was superior to that of other combatants, both allies and enemies. They engaged in spectacular and sometimes seemingly impossible military exploits. In light of these facts, the existence of the Waffen SS became indispensable for understanding the conflict between 1939 and 1945, marking one of the most intriguing aspects of the war.